right. Thank you very much for those of you joining us this evening. I am so excited for tonight. This is a long overdue conversation. My name is Cameron Matthews. I'm one of the co-directors and founders of the Tour for Diversity in Medicine. And tonight is definitely not about medicine. It is about dentistry. Way overdue that we had a conversation with some of my good friends here, mentors on our tour who are here to inspire you about becoming a dentist. We're going to have a couple of great conversations, and they're each going to really share their own story and experience about how either they entered the field or how they're practicing now or how they just got prepared to take on what I honestly should have way considered as a pre-med, and I totally didn't. And I am just like still at a loss about it. We'll have one more of our colleagues, Dr. Young, joining us in the evening. She's running from work, but she'll be joining us a little bit later. She'll be popping on camera. But with that, I'm going to ask each of our colleagues to introduce themselves as they go along. I'll be sharing some slides. And if we have some time at the end, we can definitely answer any questions that you can just drop in the chat or the Q&A. So with that, I will allow our very own Dr. Elizabeth Nunez to introduce herself. And Liz, would you like me to share the slides right now or wait?
Yeah, go ahead, Cam. We'll jump right in.
Perfect. So let me figure that. I got it. I can do this. We've been on Zoom for a year. I can do this.
We got this.
There we go.
Oh, wait a minute, but now what that did was kind of, give me just a second. Okay, great. All right. Well, hi, everyone. I'm so glad you could join us tonight. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Nunez. I'm joined today by Dr. Ron Marquez, Dr. Shayla Wilson, and coming up in a little bit will be Dr. Deidre Young. So, if you've been strongly thinking about becoming a dentist or you were just curious, I hope that some of the things we're going to present to you tonight will either further spark your interest or help solidify your decisions. We have a jam-packed hour in store for you. So, okay, let's get going. We'll go to the next slide. Okay, so all four of us are mentors in an amazing organization called Tour for Diversity. And as you can see there, our mission is to educate, cultivate, and inspire not just dentists, but future physicians, pharmacists, podiatrists, and others in the health professions that are coming from diverse racial and ethnic backgrounds. And we want to do that by forming connections and helping to educate and to inform future healthcare professionals to fulfill what we know is a national need. And I'll be talking about that in a little bit. In the time of COVID, we've been reaching out on social platforms like tonight, but in the past and hopefully again in the future, we'll be on tour and meeting all of you face to face with some wisdom. Okay, next slide. Okay, so as I mentioned, today's lineup includes me. I'm going to touch on providing you with an understanding of the current dental workforce and maybe help you decide about your place in it. Dr. Ron Marquez will be doing, I think, a virtual tour of his dental office to show you some ins and outs of a daily practice. Dr. Shayla Wilson will be talking about the art and science of dentistry. And finally, we're going to wrap up with something I think that's very important in the stage that you're in right now, which is how to best write your personal essay on applications. And that's going to be with Dr. Young. Okay, next slide. Let's go back a little bit to Tour for Diversity and why we exist and why we care. I love this little infographic because it talks about some of our current realities. Some of us may have come from lower socioeconomic backgrounds, not had the ability to participate or benefit from all the academic preparation or extracurricular activities that kind of help round out a good candidate for professional school, or like me as a first generation American, not having parents who were very connected to resources or, have had to deal with language barriers. So we want to create not just equity in our profession, but an eventual sense of justice that will eliminate barriers to help you reach your goals. And that's part of what we regard. Next slide. Okay, so you should know what the current landscape of the dental profession is right now. So let's take a look at a very recent study that looked at social disparities. I think we might have jumped one. Yeah, there we are. Okay. So this is coming from the American Dental Association's Health Policy Institute. And you can see on the right side of that slide, the distribution of the general US population by race. Whites are at 60%, Asians at 5.6, Hispanics at 18.4, and Blacks at 12.4. But now, if you take a look on the left side of that, you'll see the distribution of dentists, and the representation is not so even, right? So that's something that we're here to work on and address. Next slide. Okay, here we see the distribution of first-year dental school students, enrollees by race. So the dental student body has diversified over time. We've seen more Asians, more Hispanic dental students, but the share of Black dental students, it just hasn't changed. A big change and silver lining that we have seen is that the gender gap has not only narrowed, but has actually flipped. So there are slightly more females entering dental school now than males. So what that should tell us is that change can happen. Okay, what was a male-dominated profession is now more reflective of the population, and I really hope that we're going to see that happen in race distribution as well. Okay, next slide. All right, this is a big thing. We need to look at how to best finance our education. So this study also showed that educational debt levels for dental school graduates, it varies significantly by race. So for example, more than 20% of Asian dentists graduate with no debt compared to less than 1% of Black dentists. So Black dentists by far graduate with the highest level of debt, as you can see in this chart. So what are the things that you should be looking for? Any student, really. You have to select your potential school wisely. Look at the tuition rates. Don't forget about the cost of living, because that's a big part of your expenses. The housing, transportation, parking. So just look strongly at the cost of dental schools that you're going to apply to, and cast a wide net, because that cost should factor into your application process and decision making. Big thing, look into all options for scholarships. There's military scholarships, Army, Navy, Air Force, public service, public health, academic scholarships, other social scholarships. I mean, and in this area, there's no scholarships that is too small. Okay, so small and large, they all make a difference. So look for them. There's sites, there are clearinghouses for these. And I really encourage you to just take that time to apply for those. Okay, next slide. Okay, so here's a rundown of what a typical educational path might be for you. So it's 4 years of undergrad. Some of you might be able to get your requirements in 3 years or less. And although non-science majors are considered, the vast majority of first-year students had an undergrad science major, okay? And most major dental schools then, once you get in, are 4 years, and then you can actually go out and practice once you pass your boards and your state's licensing exam. After that, you have an option to go into a residency if you like, whether it's to hone your general dentistry skills, or you can select a and I have them all listed there. You can go onto the American Dental Association website to look at those and learn more about each one of those. And next slide, please. So my opinion is that dentistry is a beautiful profession. On top of that, it pays well and provides a really nice work-life balance. So the US News and World Report came out with their top best healthcare jobs for 2021. Dentists ranked number 5 in that report, so good news for us. And then they came out with another piece of that report, and you'll see that's in that graph that you see there. They put out the best paying healthcare jobs, and of the top 11 that you see listed there, 4 of those that are highlighted in yellow are dentists. So that's good, and that's just the median salary. You know, there's a whole range depending on kind of what you do with your career. I have some friends who have purchased practices, and they're, you know, have many employees, and so they're looking at somewhere more near the $1 million mark a year. So it can be a big range. It just kind of depends what you want to do with your career. Okay, next slide. Okay, so today is about a day in the life of a dentist. My experience is varied. I came from a background in the Army. I was an Army Medical Service Corps officer, and then I was an Army general dentist. I have a master's degree in science and teaching, and those things kind of all wrapped up together brought me to work in the federal system as a VA dentist and educator. I'm also very fortunate to be an advocate for veterans, especially homeless veterans. And I promote education for all of our VA dentistry staff across the country. And so I'm not chairside every day. I treat homeless veterans a few times a month. So I do more administrative things. So just so that you know that if you choose dentistry, it doesn't mean you necessarily have to be chairside your entire career, although some people do choose to do that, and it's very fulfilling. And I'll wrap up with the next slide. And this is just a recent quote from the American Dental Association president, Dr. Clemenson. It's about equity. And, you know, I just kind of pull this out because I think that if we translate his words that I think originally were geared towards dental patients, and we gear that towards up and coming dentists, it's really about creating opportunities and informing you about what resources are available to you to help you meet your goals and find your passion and create a good career and life choice for you and for your family eventually. So with that, I will turn it over to our next presenter. And I think that's Dr. Marquez.
All right, how's it going, everyone? At any point, if anyone has any questions, feel free to just type them in the box and I will be happy to answer them. Mine's gonna be kind of straightforward, just gonna show you some pictures of the dental office that I'm working at. I'll start off by just kind of giving you a little bit of background with me, because I've actually just started working as a private practitioner. I am a pediatric dental specialist. So I went after dental school an additional 2 years to specialize in pediatrics, to treat kids, of course, those with special healthcare needs. And I have the ability to take them to the operating room with an anesthesiologist and really do full mouth dental rehab cases, which has been pretty awesome. Sorry. But yeah, I've been working for close to a month now in private practice. I'm from New Mexico, graduated there at the University of New Mexico, and I got involved at the University of New Mexico. I actually attended a tour for diversity in medicine, something similar to this, where I actually met Dr. Young. So she honestly played a huge role in me finding my passion and me getting into dental school and getting to where I am right now. So you guys are on the right track. Listen to everything that we have to say, reach out to us. We're happy to answer questions. Now, after this, really use those resources. Dr. Young helped me get into a summer enrichment program, and I encourage everyone to look into those. We spent 6 weeks just kind of learning a little bit more about dentistry, the didactic portion. We were able to get hands-on to really understand what it's going to take to be a dentist in the future. From there, I went to the University of Missouri, Kansas City for dental school. There, I found out that I really enjoyed treating kids and applied to the pediatric residency. That took me to Cincinnati, where I was at a hospital program there, learning more about the specialty. And then now I am in Kansas City doing private practice. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide and we will get into it. So this is a picture of just kind of a typical dental unit. This is where we do hygiene. So one of the assistants or the hygienist, this is where you go and you get your cleaning. They typically clean. I then go and take a look at the x-rays, do an exam, diagnose any cavities, of course, and then any other abnormalities that we find, usually in the head and neck region. We'll kind of get a little bit more into some of those things as far as like what tools that we use, the different instruments and things like that. I just wanted to start with kind of a basic picture of what the dental office looks like from the patient perspective, at least. You can go to the next one. These are X-ray machines. The practice that I'm working at, it's been there for a while. So I'm pretty sure after we use these and they break down, we could probably donate them to the Smithsonian, because I have never seen X-ray machines this old. But they still work, so there's no reason to really replace them at this point. So if you go to a dentist, if you go in shadow, which I definitely encourage, you're probably going to see a little bit more high-tech instruments as far as X-ray machines and a lot of the other stuff that you're going to see today. But on the left, that's a panoramic X-ray machine. That one goes around the entire face of the patient, and we're able to kind of, from the pediatric perspective, we're able to evaluate how the adult dentition is developing. If we find any abnormalities with that, we can continue to monitor or make the proper referrals to other dental specialists, depending on what we find. On the right there, that's more of the basic radiographs that you're going to see. So we typically take bite wings, which is just kind of each side of the mouth, to look in between the teeth to see if you find any cavities that need to be treated or diagnose any other things like infections, abscesses, things like that. We could go to the next one. This is just a picture of where we develop the radiographs. So after you take the film, it's sensitive to light, so we cover it up in a black box that you can kind of see there. And then it's run through that tower where it is scanned in, transferred to our computer, and then we can kind of just pull them up from any screen, show the parents, the patient, exactly what we're seeing and why we're recommending treatment, or why we can see that they're doing a great job flossing. Those capes that you see there, those are just lead aprons, just to prevent radiation from getting into places where we don't want. Go to the next one. So this is more of, we call it an operatory. This is where we're typically doing the procedures that are a little bit more invasive. So this is where we're doing fillings. Again, in our practice, we do stainless steel crowns. In adult practices, you're doing more of the adult permanent crowns. Here, we're also extracting teeth. Maybe we're doing sealants, certain things like that. So there's a couple of more instruments that we have to provide that treatment here. You can kind of see in the corner, there's a nitrous oxide machine, so that just kind of helps with behavior management. A lot of times it helps for the little ones just to kind of get them over the initial anxiety of coming to the dentist. I mean, YouTube now is the worst for pediatric dentists because most teenagers already know almost everything because they Google all these things, watch YouTube videos, and are absolutely freaked out about everything. So we're battling that. So the nitrous just kind of helps get rid of that initial anxiety for most of the kids. And then, yeah, we can go on from there. This is a little bit more of a close-up of some of the instruments. The top right there, and looks kind of like scissors. That's just a mouth prop to help the kids stay open. We have a couple of the hand instruments there, and then we have the little dental burrs that we put on those instruments to essentially drill the teeth and get the cavities out. And then on the left side, those are some of the materials that we use, some composite. The purple thing that you see on that left picture on the bottom right, that it's actually called Mr. Thirsty. There's other instruments that help retract the tongue and kind of keep the area that you're working nice and dry and free of spit and anything else. But those ones are typically used for pediatrics. On the top left-ish, you could kind of see a wand there. That's just a curing light, and we use that to cure the materials that we use, and it actually just kind of helps. It hardens that material that we initially just kind of squirt into the holes that we drill, and then manipulate. And yeah, that makes it nice and hard. Cool, we can go on from there. And these are some of the things that we use for behavior management. Again, I kind of touched on the nitrous oxide. That is honestly a pediatric dentist's best friend. I use it every day, multiple times a day. And then on the right side, again, we touched on the lead apron, but I want you to focus your attention to that little board and blanket there that is in the corner. Hopefully no one has ever used one of these or had them used on you, I should say. But that is what we call a papoose board. And it's typically for the younger kids. Sometimes we use it for patients with special needs that just don't really understand or can't comprehend the importance of staying still for the procedures. And we use that just to kind of help secure them. It's called protective stabilization. We're essentially kind of making sure that the patient can't bring their hands to their face and hit any of the instruments that we're using. So that is another form of behavior management that we try to avoid, because a lot of parents just really don't like the idea of their child being kind of wrapped up and not being able to move their hands or feet. When we do, in my specialty, we also have the option of doing oral sedation or in-office conscious sedation, where we can provide the patient with a little bit of medicine just to kind of help them relax a little bit more and take that edge off. And a lot of times we end up using this board to kind of help stabilize them again, because sometimes with the medication, we don't want them falling on the floor or, again, bringing their hands or feet up to their face. So that's another good use for that. All right, and with that, I'm gonna pass it on to Dr. Wilson.
Hi, can everybody see me? Hello, I'm Dr. Shayla Wilson, and today I am going to talk to you about the art and the science of dentistry. We just got a wonderful tour of a typical pediatric office facility, and he was talking a lot about instruments and things that we use. And my goal today is to sort of illustrate what some of those things are and get you familiarized with certain things that you might be acquainted with once you start shadowing and getting into dental school. So you can be a little bit more comfortable because you're a little bit more familiar in the environment. And as we go along, we'll talk about how it relates to the art and science of dentistry as we go along. A little bit about me before we do that is I am one of those non-traditional students that went to dentistry later on in life. I liked how at the beginning it says that a science major is preferred. I'm actually one of those people who didn't major in science. So if you're kind of halfway through school towards another track, you can get the prerequisites for dental school and still get in. Personally, I have a bachelor's in equine science, and all that means is I was a horse trainer before becoming a dentist. And as an apprentice horse instructor and trainer in training, I had some encounters in my life that geared my life towards the direction of dentistry. And in particular, I was working in Compton with the Compton Junior Posse, and our motto was keeping kids on horses and off the streets. So if they made good grades and got along with their families and, stayed out of trouble and just, did normal things, they were able to come into our program and learn how to ride horses through our program. So how did I go from there to to becoming a dentist? Well, because it was a not-for-profit organization, we relied on public support in order to fund the program. And I noticed the kids that appeared like they had poor oral health, that when we were in front of cameras or if they were getting interviewed by important and powerful and wealthy people, they had these devices that they developed, like trying to talk without showing their top lip or laughing like this so people couldn't see their smile. And it really broke my heart seeing that, how it affects people socially, having the poor oral care. And as I was becoming a dentist, I saw how it really improved the quality of people's lives. And so it's a really fulfilling job if you're thinking about it. So hopefully this talk that we have, we'll see if this is something that you want to do day to day, if this is the kind of thing that you could look at, if it fascinates you, if it feels like fun and you can't wait to engage and try out some of these things that I'm going to show you, then maybe you're in the right place. So hold that thought while I get this set up so I can show you what we're talking about here. So let's just pretend there's some elevator music playing, and let's start right there. So this is probably going to be upside down, so I'm going to try to write upside down for you guys. And as a dentist, this is actually a critical skill. So let's see how I do here. Dentistry is an art, and you have to use indirect vision in order to do your job, because you can't flip patients over and upside down in order to work in their mouths. You have to be able to do things indirectly. So what are dentists? First, I'm running out of room here on the paper, but first, we're doctors. Can you all see that? So we have to understand the human body and how oral health affects the health of the person overall. I have a patient who had poor oral care, and a lot of his teeth needed a lot of work, and he was very prone to getting sick. He was he had a lot of GI problems, and he kept getting infections, and he was very, very, very thin. After rehabilitating his mouth, he comes back over time, and I noticed that he just looked healthier, he was gaining weight, and it really had a huge influence on him and the quality of his life. So we're doctors, we can't become toothists, okay? It's really easy to get honed in on the actual engineering and art part, but we're doctors first. So what else are we? Let me try to write smaller this time. Again, I'm writing upside down. Let me know if I pass the writing upside down test. Ooh, this one's hard, the ends. Next, we are engineers. It's amazing the things that we're able to do with people's teeth. How is it that anything we do in dentistry works? You have to understand the materials and the science behind what we're doing, as well as the biological science, to make it all work together and be this integrative process, because we're actually designing teeth. We're designing, how will this work? What material is going to be best for this patient? What material does the patient want? How pretty is this material? Are aesthetics important at all in this particular case? So those are things that you are thinking about as an engineer. And last but not least, we are artists. Ooh, did I get the S right? A-R-A-R, one more letter. Okay, this was challenging, doing it upside down, but as a life of a dentist, this is our world, okay? So what does that make all together? Let me circle some things here. So if I put them all together at the end, dentist, engineer, artist, doctor, engineer, artist equals a dentist at the end. So we incorporate all of these very well. So let me set this aside and show you what I mean. Okay. Here we have some polishing disc mixed in this bag, but what I'm trying to show you here are these tooth models, okay? So these are blown up, very, very much larger, just to show you what exactly we're doing as dentists, okay? So this model is showing you what it's like to do a filling, okay? Let's see if I can get this showing in the picture here. Sometimes you get cavities on the top of your teeth, and you have to prepare the tooth and doing the drilling part by going into the tooth. So let's see if you can see this here. All right, I tried to find these bigger ones so you could see it better, but inside this tooth, there's a little hole, okay? Not sure if you're able to see that very well. Maybe if I bring it closer. There you go. I think you can see that a little bit better there. Okay, so you have to follow the natural anatomy of the tooth. You follow the grooves and the pits and the fissures along in the tooth so you can maintain that structural integrity as you are taking away unhealthy tooth structure. And so that way, when you're building the tooth back up, it won't break, because the tooth is in its strongest state when it's the enamel itself. Enamel is stronger than bone. So you have to make sure that you are able to build something back up that can withstand the forces of chewing down on teeth. So this is one of the simple ones we can do. But again, you can see this is like the size of the tip of my finger there. So this is not to scale, it's just so you can see clearly what's going on. Sometimes you have cavities in between your teeth, so you have to make the preparation a little bit different. So from the top of the tooth, you have to reach the cavity from the side, and this is what those look like. That's how you would access it. So you would have a handpiece come down here. Actually, I'll use this to kind of show you how it's done. This is not a burr, it's a polishing tool, but just to show you, we take the drill and we go back and forth like this to make the preparation here and come out to get the tooth nice and clean. Okay, so there's many different ways to do this, and there's very specific specifications you have to abide by to make sure you hold the integrity of the tooth. You have to make sure that the filling will stay inside. So what retention method are you going to use? Is it going to be chemical or mechanical? How is it going to stay on the tooth? So those are all things you have to remember. So this would be a canine. So these models are different designs of the different preparations you can make, and it's not all inclusive. This is just some that you'll have to learn while you're in dental school. So let me show you something that every dental student has. Let me be right back. Okay. Okay, so this is my handy dandy fake tooth kit. Okay, so these are more to scale. All right, look how much smaller that is than the other models. You're having to do some engineering ingenuity on something half the size of my fingernail. Okay, so this would be a premolar that I'm holding, and it's a plastic tooth. And this is something that we all practice on in dental school until we got it right. So don't worry before you get to your clinicals and start practicing on people. You always get to practice on these first, okay? And so what you do to measure what you're doing, because how are you going to build a house without any rulers? You have to know how big everything is. Okay, so this is the dentist's hammer, so to speak. You got to have it in every toolkit. This is called an explorer. This yellow part in the middle was just the silicone identifier, so I could easily spot mine in a dental class full of these things. But this little hook on this side is how we inspect the tooth, okay? So we can go on these spots here and say, I think there's a cavity there. It'll feel a little bit sticky. It won't feel glassy smooth like the rest of the tooth. So if you're wondering why dentists are scratching on your teeth during the dental exam, that's why. They're just trying to make sure that there's a cavity not there, or if there is one, they don't miss it, okay? Now on the other side of this particular instrument, we have something that's called a periodontal probe, okay? So this one, I know you won't be able to see this. Everything is so small, but oh, maybe you can. There's little dark lines on there, okay? This particular probe has 1 millimeter markings, and then it skips up from 3 millimeters to 5 millimeters, then 7 millimeters, and then 1 millimeter after that, if you can see those dark lines. But we're existing in a very small world. So you have to have hand skills and be precise. If you play an instrument, or if you have a skill where you're using your hands, this is a tool that kind of shows just how small everything is. So this is kind of a real life size tooth. I want to make sure, for example, one of the engineering things is that we're not making any of the walls of the tooth outside of the hole that we drill too small. So if it's too small, we have to change the plan and go to a different model to make sure we're making a strong tooth. Okay, so we use this as a measuring tool. Is this going to be strong? Is this deep enough? How much am I doing? So this is the dentist ruler. Okay, this is our eyes, and this is our measuring tool. Okay, I could do this all day, but just to keep things moving along, one of your friends in dental school is this little guy. Okay, hello. So this is called a typodont. And those fake teeth that I had, you can put in and out of this thing, and you can practice. You can put this on a metal rod, and you can practice like you're on a real patient. They even have typodonts that have fake skin on them. It looks a little deranged, and you have to use your imagination. This particular one is way more stretchy than what would exist on a real human, but then you can practice managing patient's lip, make sure you're not injuring someone in the process. This one's real old, and it's survived several moves. So let's get this little guy, and he can rest now. So there's many tools and a dentist toolkit that they have to help them operate on people and have their accuracy. Let's see how we are on time. I'll show you one more thing because I think this is pretty cool. a lot of people don't understand what's going on when you mean a root canal. So, this is an example of what dentists need in order to do a root canal. Full disclaimer, none of these materials were used on people's teeth. This is just practice only. But you know how there's a long root at the end of your tooth? Well, sometimes they can get sick. They can get infected, okay? Now, this isn't exactly what a real root of a tooth looks like, but this is the crown up here at the top, and the root extends down into the bone and stabilizes your tooth inside of the body, okay? So you take these fine little needles here. They're so thin. And you put them inside the tooth and you twist them around like this, and you clean out that dead and infected root. And then once you're all done and you have it nice and clean, you put this. This stuff is called gutta percha, and it comes from a tree, and it's a biologically inert material, basically meaning that your body doesn't respond to this. So if you put it inside your tooth, you're good to go. Your body's not going to reject it like a kidney transplant or something. You won't need to be on medications the rest of your life to keep your body from throwing this tooth away because this material is inside of it. So you put that inside the tooth so bacteria doesn't crawl back up that root, and then you fill the tooth in again and put a crown on it, and you're good to go. Okay, let me turn this back around. All right, so I hope that was a good general tour of the basic things that you would run into as a dental student. And we talked a little bit about how dentistry is a medical profession first, and how the art and the science plays into every aspect of dentistry and some of the tools that you use as you're getting introduced to dentistry in dental school and in real practice. So if anybody has questions at the end, I'll be happy to answer them. And our last speaker is Dr. Young.
Thank you, Dr. Wilson, and hello, everyone. We're so excited that you're with us on this evening. I don't know if you're Pacific Time or Eastern Standard, but it's getting towards evening, at least if you're in the continental US. So thank you so much for joining with us, and hopefully you learned a lot about the statistics, where you will be. You've seen some great information from Ron and Dr. Marquez around what to expect in a dental office for all of you who only sat in the chair and never had a great opportunity to go check out an office. You now got to see it virtually. And Shayla, I was impressed. You did that backwards, indirect vision. Dr. Wilson, you got it going on. So now I'm going to talk about the part where you all think about your personal statement and how to write an essay. So I'm going to start with my very first slide. Let's see. There we go. So we're going to be looking about telling your story. And before we go to that next slide, I want you to think about this. I'm going to say something to you. So I sat on admissions, actually still sit on admissions for dental schools. And think about this. I read 2,000 personal essays. Yes, 2,000. So if you start off with Socrates or something from, I don't know, Plato, something really amazing, some Shakespeare quote, I've seen it a million times. What would be better? Your story. So I'm going to just off the top of my head, something we use at one of our sessions. This is the beginning of an excellent personal statement. I remember waking up at 5 a.m. to help my father plow the fields. We would get up and do all the things that our community needed, our family needed, to make sure that we could see another day. to put food on the table, to feed us and feed others within our community. I think that this allowed for me to understand perseverance, hard work, and sheer determination. So think about this. We learned a lot about this particular student just in 2 sentences, right? Probably student may be from rural America, right? Farm. Talked about the fruits of the labor of getting the produce or getting whatever they're growing and using that to feed themselves as well as their family. What else do we learn? Student knows how to wake up at 5 a.m. and go do what they need to do to take care of the family, to take care of the things that the father and the things that the family needed in order to survive. Food is essential, it's critical. How are these skills transferable? Well, if I think about it, probably gonna have to wake up to go to class. I'm gonna have to wake up to go to dental school. I'm gonna have to wake up to go to work. Determination. Well, kept doing it, kept going. Do you think that that is transferable in dental school? Absolutely. This person is determined to do what is necessary. We also hear in the story family values. That could be something important to lift up. That sense of community, the sense of family to help to make sure that the family is able to sustain life. Something very critical that all people would be able to understand if they read that personal statement, because we all are making sure that we are taking care of ourselves. And if we have a family or obviously come from a family or a community, that we're taking care of those individuals as well. So in 2 sentences, I learned a tremendous amount about this applicant. What I also know is that it's unique to that particular applicant. So I wouldn't read that 900 times again and again, because that would be very specific and unique to that individual. So I want you to consider that as you consider what we're going to go through next. So in the Q&A, even though you're not asking a question, we're going to use this function because I want you to answer some of these question prompts that you will see next. So you can please put it in the Q&A section. And I know it's not a question, but we're going to use that so we can make this a little bit more interactive. So first slide, very first question prompt. I am good at. So in the Q&A, give me one word or finish that phrase. What's something that you are good at? I also invite some of the doctors to participate. Don't advance. Go ahead, go backwards for me. Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna go to Q&A and see if anyone has anything typed in. I am good at. Or waiting for that, I want you to consider this next question. The area I would like to make more of an impact in is what? So these 2 very important questions should be something that you're lifting up in your personal statement. So considering, I'm good at connecting with others. That's something that I'm good at. So let's say I was a dental applicant. I would make sure that I talk about my strength within my personal statement, as well as if I'm invited to an interview. Let's see, the question for me, the area I would like to make more of an impact in. Well, seeing more folks like-minded in my profession. Dr. Nunez talked about our professions now turning more women are more interested. That was not always the case. I know when I first started, it was about 80% white male dominant profession. And of course, the face is now changing. I'm very, very, very excited about that. I got some feedback. I see that someone said, I'm good at encouraging my team members. Absolutely. So let's think about, let's say I'm working at a bookstore while I'm in undergrad, and I have a few other team members that report to me or work with me. Think about, how is that transferable to dentistry? Well, if you're encouraging your team members, for example, at this bookstore, do you not think that that wouldn't be a really great thing to lift up? It shows that you can also use those skills to encourage your patients on good patient care, your recommendation for treatment. How how it's actually connected. Oral health is a part of overall health, making sure that you're encouraging them to not just focus on the oral health, but the total body as well. Thank you, Cameron. I also said, I see that I would like to make more of an impact in recruiting more young doctors to the VA. That's right. So understanding what those things and where do you want to make an impact during your personal statement, let that come through. Let that passion, that impact that you want to have come through, not only in the writing, but also during your interview. I see Dr. Nunes says, I'm good at coaching rising leaders. Well, we have some amazing people clearly here, a part of our group right now, that clearly they're here inspiring these amazing leaders today. If you're not sure what the Q&A function is, if you go to the bottom of the screen, you should be able to see something that says Q&A, and you can put your answers right in there. Another thing, here's another question to think as you're developing that essay. Thinking back over my life, the one talent that has come natural for me is blank. So it really allows for the reader or the interviewer to learn more about things that you naturally do, naturally aspire to, naturally give, naturally read, naturally, always like to, create things with your hands. That is applicable to dental school. Dental school admissions, of course, we want you to be able to work with your hands. Of course, we want people who are avid readers, right? Because think about all the texts. Think about the things that you're going to have to digest and understand, not just for exams and boards, but so you can be the best practitioner possible. Any folks, you can put it in the comments section or Q&A, thinking back over your life. What's that one talent that has always come natural? Looking to see if I have any additional comments. While I wait on that, I'd also like for you to consider this question as well. The most unique things about my journey is. That is a really important thing to think about as you prepare for dental school admissions. That is something that you absolutely want to share within your personal statement. Again, what's that unique thing that separates you from every other applicant? This is going to be really the butter of the whole statement, bread and butter. So this is the part that I really want you to focus most of your attention on when you are developing that particular thing. The last thing I'd like to say as you think through your personal statement is you're going to be asked about challenges. When you've been invited to that interview, you're super excited about that. I want you to think about what's the most important challenge that you were facing or challenges that you did face in the past. And then I want you to think about what skills helped you to overcome, help you to navigate that challenging thing. So when you talk about those challenges, let's say one semester you had a lower grade, let's say it was the lowest GPA you ever had, but something challenging was happening in your life. Be prepared to talk about that semester, but also think about what were you able to do to get better, to improve, to show that upward trajectory, to continue to show your interest. So you make this challenging thing actually a story about strength and perseverance. So think about this slide as you're developing your essay, and think about how do you finish the sentence that's unique to you. With that being said, I want to show a little bit about my story and how I finished my sentence. And it's still not complete yet. We can now advance. And I'm going to have you advance one more time. So I'm from Detroit, Michigan. Yay. Very happy about my area and, the things that I was able to kind of get exposed to really early on is that, like Dr. Wilson talked about, people didn't have access to care. People were covering up their mouth. And what did that mean in terms of them later on trying to even get a job, let's say in a fast food restaurant? Hello, welcome to such and such. May I take your order? Someone literally, if I had the same qualified candidate, teeth. It's the first person that they're seeing. So a job that's down the street may not be accessible to someone if they didn't have proper oral care. So I thought about access. I thought about how does that translate to a living wage and people working. So it started really early on thinking about healthcare. You can advance the slide. And then in high school, I went to an art school. So remember, talked about artist, engineer, doctor. Well, obviously dentistry is artistic. So I went to an art school for high school, loved it. And it really taught me to really hone my skills in the art practice. Advance. Why these things are super important is because I took them to college. I went to a school called Howard University. It's in Washington, D.C. I was a part of the Michigan Club. Clearly, I'm from Detroit. And that is when I started to really get more specific towards dentistry. I was a part of this group called the Pre-Professional Club. And we had people to come into our school and talk about dental career pathways. Very long story short, they talked about the importance of shadowing. So out of everything that you've heard today, I also want to say, go to an office, shadow a dentist, make sure you start to get comfortable with those opportunities. Advance the slide. So in my junior year, I was actually senior year of Howard, I was originally thinking about pediatrician. I switched over to pediatric dentistry, ended up going to Michigan for dental school, University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. It was a great, great, great experience. And a part of our tour for diversity, one of the stops we did was at University of Michigan, a Dearborn campus. So it was a full circle for me. I then started, you can advance teaching at University of Detroit Mercy School of Dentistry. I met these two remarkable people that are right here on this panel today, Dr. Wilson and Dr. Marquez, through our summer enrichment program. And it was just exposing students to career pathways, specifically in dentistry. And it looked like it was successful because we got two panelists today from that particular group. Continue to work part-time there as I advanced the slide, started working at a nonprofit called United Way. And you go, well, what is the dentist doing at United Way? Well, it's a nonprofit looking at health and equity issues. And I ended up serving as their vice president of health and equity. And it was an amazing experience. Continued to do public health dentistry. I never stopped because, of course, dental care is near and dear to my heart. And I finally, last arrow, I work as a chief diversity officer at not dental school, I'm at an arts college. So it's almost that full circle moment, which is why I kind of started from the beginning with my art background. So I still do dentistry, absolutely, 1 to 2 times a week. But I also serve as an administrator just to ensure that we're opening up doors, because this is the art school. Doesn't mean that they can't go to a dental school. And you have to have an undergraduate degree, have enough credits from an undergraduate bearing institution to even consider pathways in healthcare professions. So I thought, what a better way to look at an undergraduate program and still be able to break down the barriers for those who are trying to obtain educational opportunities, and a degree bearing institution is obviously one of those. But I share this story with you because there are many areas within dentistry. I taught at a dental school, worked at a nonprofit, and always continue to do dentistry throughout my entire story. So think about what you can do and what you can bring. What are your passions? What are your interests? And dentistry, because you're here, it's probably one of them. So I encourage you to continue to network, to continue to connect, and also to go to our website, tour4diversity.org. You also can do hashtag representation matters and hashtag diversity matters. And you can go on our Instagram, you can follow us on Twitter. We are there. You can hear more about our unique stories. Everything's not always perfect, but when we come together, because we're working together, we collectively can become the change that we want to see in this world. So thank you all so much for joining us today. And thank you to all of our wonderful panelists. Not sure if Dr. Matthews is going to bring greetings. If not, thank you all for joining us.
Thank you guys so much. This has been an amazing hour. We need to continue to promote diversity within all of our fields, and the 4 of you are such a great example of that. So with that, we are going to close out the evening. Thank you to our small audience. Hopefully you got a lot out of this, and we'll definitely be sharing this broadly. So please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. We're everywhere. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.